What's up, HyperFast Nation? On this episode of the show, I sat down with an amazing guest who has spent over a decade coaching real estate agents, real estate industry leaders on how to build personal brands, how to be their authentic self, how to get in front of more potential clients and connect with them. Please welcome to the show, Tyler Mount. Welcome to the show today, Tyler. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Dan.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you on. You've got such an amazing, diverse background and just a variety of experience helping real estate agents. Before we dive into all the great lessons that you're going to be able to give our listeners and viewers today, why don't you give folks a little bit about your bio?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Tyler. I am the CEO and founder of Henry Street Creative, a personal brand consultancy and digital marketing agency dedicated to growing the careers and the brands of some of the most prolific leaders in the real estate industry, from Spencer Rascoff, founder of Zillow, to Ryan Serhant, to the CEOs of Twitter, T-Mobile, and even a sitting president. Our work has really centered around the power of personal brand. How you, Dan, as a leader in the industry, can sell much more product, can sell much more volume by harnessing your authentic truth than ever talking about your brokerage or talking about your traditional marketing funnel. It's all about how can I show up authentically in the space. And I found that that's what consumers want. And I help agents and brokerages alike really cash in on that.
How do real estate agents do that? How do they show up authentically as themselves? And what stops them from doing that typically?
Well, look, I think we'll start with the question about what stops people from doing that. The answer is simple in my mind. It's the fact that from a young age, our friends, our family, culture, but most importantly, society are dictating who we should be and what we should be. So as humans, and specifically as children, we grow up choosing who we are, but most importantly, who we have to act like in order to avoid oftentimes ridicule or humiliation. Like that's part of the childhood experience, right? And then in our adult years, it's really spent choosing what was real and what was just used to protect us. So I oftentimes find that the reason we act a certain way is because of this idea that we should act a certain way. And I think that's really one of the most toxic words in business. Why? Because all too often I hear
the word should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Right? It's like this concept I hear every day. Well, I'm going to do it this way because I should. Well, this is how real estate agents should act. Well, my broker said I should do it this way. Says who? There is no rule book. And some of the most prolific minds in our industry have thrown the rule book in the trash and thrived because of it. So I think that's why we find ourselves in this predicament a lot. And the way that we do it and do it correctly is twofold. First, a more macro look is the fact that we have to retrain our brain. We have to relearn and start to figure out through testing and reiteration that if I show up authentically as I am, no one is going to probably hate that. Okay. And once we teach ourselves that over and over and over and over again, it becomes easier to show up authentically. And then from a real practical sense, it's showing up in the content space across social and being like, this is who I am unapologetically. And 9 times out of 10, you just need someone in your corner reiterating that you being who you are is just fine enough. So that's how I really approach it.
So yeah, so it sounds like it's fear that prevents agents or probably anyone from being authentic, and this is stemming back to what helped us survive through childhood, maybe, or that we experienced through childhood. Is that correct?
Bingo, right? A lot of our decisions in business, dare I say, over 50%, certainly the majority of the decisions we make in business are often attributed to fear-based thinking. Well, I have to do this or I'm going to lose the client. I have to show up in this way or I'm going to lose the client. It's always about losing the client versus I'm going to show up authentically who I am so that the people who are meant to be in my tribe and meant to transact with me can see me and hear me truly. And that's where I really specialize in work.
And if agents can figure this out, right, if they can learn how to be authentic, the most likely result is it will attract people that like that would connect well with you, and probably repel those that would be hard for you to work with because they don't like something that's authentically you. And if you're kind of hiding that throughout the relationship, that's tough to do day in, day out.
Yeah, certainly. And, whenever we really get to the nitty gritty of this, I remind any agent who asks a simple series of questions. And it's the fact that there is no way in business to appease everyone. Okay. There are people on earth, Dan, that do not want to work with you because you're a man. There are people on earth who don't want to work with women because they're women, because they're gay, because they're straight, because they're Republican, because they're Democrat, because they're pro-life, because they're pro-choice. It doesn't matter. No matter who you are, you automatically ostracize a portion of the community. And once you start to rationalize that, my answer is, why wouldn't I want to ostracize the people that don't want to work with the real me? I'm not saving face by acting like something I'm not. I'm just ostracizing a different group of people. So my tactic and my technique is to say, if you show up authentically in this space, and we can talk about how we do that, of course, but if we show up authentically, my tribe, or the people who want to work with me, are going to hear me versus the people who want to work with me because I'm acting like something I'm not.
Right. Now, I think that in today's society, there's such a lack of authenticity in many areas that I think that even if you're being authentic and it may not align with some people, I think there's some people that might be opposite of what you're putting out, but they just appreciate the authenticity so much that they will actually be attracted to work with you, even though they might not be someone that thinks the same as you about everything.
Absolutely. I think it's very rare you find someone that thinks exactly like you. And I think there's something to say about being unapologetic, right? Even if I don't agree with X, Y, and Z, the fact that you can be unabashedly unapologetic, it makes you a thought leader, right? It makes you a leader in itself. And that's what's really, really important here to nuance.
How do you take these principles that we've talked about, and let's say an agent reaches out to you that wants to work with you? How do you actually take like these ideas and put together a plan for them? Like what would that scenario kind of look like?
Absolutely. So I have, over the course of the last decade, unknowingly created what I now call the empire methodology. Like, how can I build my own authentic empire? And it's divided into 6 categories that, spell EMPIRE. And I won't belabor the point here with our short time together. But it really goes through holistically how to build a personal brand from the ground up. How do we elevate our current brand? How do we market for the greatest impact? This is your traditional marketing function. We go into pinpointing your customer. Very few business owners understand their customer granularly, but that's so important. Then we go to ignite your superpower, the belief that I think everyone has a superpower. It's my job to find it, flex it, and ignite it. R is refine your systems. No business can be successful without strong systems in the background in order to ensure that every lead that comes through gets serviced appropriately. And then the final E in Empire is evolve and elevate. How do I track trends and leverage those trends when they're going to be an efficient and effective use of my time, energy, and money? So all of those things combined holistically lead my clients to success in the personal brand space. We can obviously dive into more granular examples here in a little bit.
Yeah, let's get granular about it.
Cool. So what I would love to share with you is, social is probably the most predominant place that people struggle, in my experience. I don't know what to post on social media. I don't know how to show up authentically as myself. And so the most glaring example to me in traditional, status quo, boring, lazy real estate marketing is every agent and their dog putting a photo of them in front of a home they just sold in Canva and writing just sold, right? Every agent you've ever seen does it. And what does it say? It says nothing about you. I'm on your social to interact with you. I don't care that a house just sold because I'm not in the market. I care that you sold a home, but you have to be a part of the conversation. So, I juxtapose the status quo, the lazy way of doing this, which is just sold 123 Main Street, $1 million, writing it in Canva, and you showing me a really mediocre photo from the MLS. Great. The other portion is doing it correctly. And when I say correctly, this isn't a conversation about not needing to share that. That's very important. We have to share that portion of your experience and strategy because it shows that you're actually transacting and you're worth your salt. But it's how we show up to make it more personal. So a perfect example is for anyone who works with me, I always try to push them to hire a photographer on the date of closing. Why? Because I want you to bring your buyer to the home they just bought, and I want you to do a really quick, impromptu, 30-second, 5-minute photo shoot of you popping a bottle of champagne, get a lot of fantastic candids. That's perfect social content for you, the agent, but most importantly, forget a business card on the fridge. They're going to frame their first photo at their home, and they're going to see you every day in their house, right? It's not about what we're sharing, because we're going to share our successes. We're going to share selling 123 Main Street, but it's about how we do it in a more authentic, approachable way that will increase engagement.
So video, you said photo of you with the client, champagne, and one other thing I like to point out for when you just sold or help someone buy is telling the story behind it. Like, how did you meet this buyer or seller? What challenges did they have? And then how did you overcome it, right? How did you get the result?
Yeah, bingo. It is all about storytelling. It's about narrative. The same thing is true when you do a listing video. I do not care about your yet another builder home, right? I see it every day. Your very normal 1-bedroom, 3-bed, 2-bath builder home in a builder community is not fantastic, okay? We have to remember that even in listing videos, what is the purpose of the listing video? 9 times out of 10, an agent will tell me to sell the house, and that is deeply incorrect. A listing video is almost never going to sell the home. It is going to exclusively show future sellers how you market a home. And how do we actually market a home correctly? It's not about 3-bed, 2-bath. There's nothing special about that. It's about the narrative of the actual home. And so, for example, it's not about the square footage of the living room. It's look at the fireplace and imagine spending Christmas morning here, right? This is a perfect kitchen to entertain, especially because X, Y, and Z. It's all about that narrative that actually makes the consumer feel something, which is the goal at the end of the day.
What about when agents are, like they sell a couple homes a month, 4 or 5 maybe, what are they posting on the other days? Like what kind of things do you encourage or help them plan to really bring out that authenticity on a day-to-day basis?
Right. So the number one thing I remind agents is that real estate is only a small portion of their social strategy. The idea that they're not humans, but instead like sales monkeys is a misnomer. I am more likely to transact with a human being I know, like, and trust, as you know, than I am to transact with a stranger who has a great sales history. So the personal content on social is even more important than the sales content. So for example, you're a fantastic agent. I obviously want to see a photo of you with the buyers, hearing about that narrative about, from contract to close, fantastic. But then additionally, I want to see you living your life, your favorite restaurant, your favorite bar, you shopping, you on family vacation, you at the gym, sweaty, you in the car rider line, dropping off the kids with COVID. All of that is a part of the human experience. All of that humanizes you and makes you more able to sell. And I have the most uncanny market data that supports that. This isn't my opinion and based on like my work experience. It's based on data science, right? And then only further reaffirmed via case studies of my work. So I think that's really important to remember as well. This is scientific in nature, specifically the correlation between authenticity and your ability to transact with a consumer.
What does the data say? I'm curious about that. If
Yeah,
you can expound more.
absolutely. So yeah, I've said it a few times in my life, but the 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 fact of the matter is that 86% of consumers believe that authenticity is the key factor when choosing a brand to support. 57% of people buy from brands they deem authentic versus inauthentic. 90% of millennials
Mm.
cite authenticity as the number one factor in who they follow online. 68% of consumers are more likely to stay loyal to a brand they deem authentic versus inauthentic. 81% of consumers state that they need to trust a brand before purchasing. And finally, 92% of consumers trust recommendations from friends versus advertisers. If you are online to sell something, you have already failed. Because at the end of the day,
Mm.
social is not a venue to sell, it is a venue to connect. And once you say the data says it, the experience in my own personal life validates it, but most importantly, I bet your own experience validates it as well. That's when we can really start to move the needle.
How long does it typically take an agent to start seeing results from this once you put a plan together, for him or her?
Yeah. Similarly to the gym, you are not going to get abs in one day. You're not going to get abs in a week. You're not going to get abs in a month. Right. And I'm really clear about that. There are a lot of quote unquote social strategists or media content teams who will tell you you're going to see instant results or you're going to see results after the first 2 weeks. They are either horrifically ill informed or lying to your face. Right. This is especially when we're talking about social, which is a byproduct or a lever that we pull to increase brand equity and perception. This is going to easily take over 6 months. And anyone who tells you that it's going to take less is ill-informed. Now, there are rare exceptions. If you were to magically go viral tomorrow, we'd be having a different conversation. But the
Right.
statistic probability of going viral is very, very low, especially consistently. And so it's all about long tail strategy and consistency that improves your ranking in the algorithm, that improves your ability to show up in an omni-channel approach in front of potential consumers.
Well, and the other thing about going viral that maybe we should add, and I'm just curious if you feel the same way, is it's probably even more rare that a viral video is like the first, piece of content that person made. Like they might have made hundreds and hundreds and it could have been like working on it for a year or two. And then all of a sudden they're an overnight success. Well, the rest of the world just didn't see the 200 videos they made before that.
Bingo. It is about playing the slot machine. You rarely go to Vegas and hit the jackpot putting in one quarter, right? People who hit the jackpot were sitting there for a while. And so it's easy to look at someone's content and be like, oh my gosh, they got 1.2 million views on this. Yeah, but look how many other views they got 300 views on. Whenever I do any type of keynote, one of my favorite things to show is there was a creator on TikTok. I won't bore you with it. It was a normal girl with a normal amount of followers who did a really strange TikTok where she was like, I have this dress and I'm going to dye it for a wedding. That's the end of it. There is no point. No one understands it. Literally 50 million views. It's not funny. It's not applicable. It's not educational. She isn't a celebrity. It makes no sense. And then you compare it to something like, I always show a Cartier ad, right? The premier, I'll say mainstream jeweler, right? Probably some of the higher price point that you can get in mainstream, universal culture. They're spending $100,000 on social content and they're getting maybe 8,000 likes, right? And that really leads me to the fact that brand marketing is not a science, it's an art. And there's really no way to predict it. Some of my content I know is going to perform really well. It doesn't. Some content I'm like, this is trash, performs really well. And it's all about playing the slot machine over and over again.
Yeah, so either way, it's going to take work, whether you go viral or slowly build. Like you're going to have to be committed to. I agree with you. Probably 6 months or more, even. But then once you've built that, now you have all these connections and at first it might be you're connecting with someone that's going to buy in a year, but but then maybe a 3-month person comes along, but then all of a sudden, the more deeper you get into this, the more your pipeline should be full of warmer and warmer leads. It's just most agents probably that don't have success in this, they probably just give up at month 1 or 2 or 3, and right before they're probably about to get results.
Absolutely. And to that point, I think the two biggest reasons people don't see success here is they quit too soon. Okay, you probably remember that really famous or iconic photo of the miner, right, in the cave digging for diamonds, and he's literally like an inch away from the biggest diamond when he gives up. That's number one. And then number two is they don't delegate. Okay, the idea that every person listening to this and every real estate agent on earth, every man, woman, and child is a fantastic content creator is absurd, right? I have a production team. I have a good idea how to create content. I'm fine in front of the camera, but I'm not about to spend any of my time filming myself, editing it, captioning it, when I can have someone do it for far less money than my time is worth, to do it better, quicker, and erase the overwhelm. That's why I don't mind doing social now. I don't like social, but I do it because it's a necessary evil. It's highly indexable. When you Google me, it's the first thing that pops up. I have to be there. I don't have the option. But instead of ruining my life, constantly thinking every day, when am I creating content and it's hanging over my head, instead I just delegate it out, knowing that it increases my brand equity, and I'm making far more money delegating it out than I am saving by doing it myself.
When someone starts to work with you, what's the process up front? Like, are there exercises you kind of put them through to really figure out what their true self is and kind of how they want to show up, or how do you help people through that process?
Yeah. So what I'll say is, unlike a lot of other very popular strategy programs, I do not teach to the book, right? Because the idea that everyone is one size fits all defeats the purpose of strategy in the first place. That's number one. Number two, I do have, like I told you earlier with what I call the Empire methodology, I have a general framework that is incredibly malleable client to client. But my work really does start with first a discovery call, me really understanding you professionally, personally, and financially, where we're at in the business and where we need to go. From there, I put together an implementation call, which is, okay, here is your strategy plan that I've put together for you. And I really focus on 2-week sprints. I see my clients on average every 2 weeks. And so in that time, I just give you enough to do 2 weeks. I'm not telling you this is what we're doing 12 months from now, because that just incites overwhelm, which reduces productivity. So I really am the person who is holding your hand, ensuring that all of the questions are answered. You retain me in between those sessions. So I'm actually helping you execute as a fractional CMO in a lot of these things. And I literally prioritize for you within the marketing ecosystem, whether that's your logo and visual identity, whether that's your website, your social content, your newsletter, your advertising strategy, your press strategy, your performance marketing strategy. It all goes through a really granular and scientifically thought out process, because people come to me because they don't know what they don't know, right? The same way I would go to an agent to help me buy or sell my home in their market because I don't know what I don't know. The same is true here.
Are there any areas where you tell people to hold back, or, hey, this is authentically you, but don't talk about this, these
absolutely.
kinds of things on social?
Yeah, look, I firmly believe in wholehearted authenticity, okay, and candor. But I remind people that as a professional, you also have to have social intelligence and tact, right? And the things that I have seen in my career where grown adults look at me and ask, is this appropriate? I truly am bewildered a lot of the time. Some people ask, the most common question I get asked surrounding this is like, do I share my political beliefs? Okay. And regardless of your political affiliation or ideology, I remind people that a lot of the times being really, really public is almost always ostracizing, okay? And it creates drama, and it creates something that isn't about doing the work of real estate, okay? I'm not saying you have to be, I wouldn't be I would be lying if I said that I think it's really smart to like be openly and overtly and steadfastly political. Okay. However, I swear to you, last month, and I was doing a quote unquote mastermind or masterclass with agents I never worked with, and she sent me a photo and said, you know, I really love this shot of me, and it was a middle aged woman, I swear to you, in a bikini on the front of her Ford Focus, and she was like, I'm trying to be funny, and I'm like, it's just really embarrassing, right? And it also comes down to taste, right? It wasn't funny. It wasn't kitschy. It was just in poor taste. And so, yeah, there are some things we shouldn't do. I'm not going to punch an old lady on social and post it for views, because that says something about my business too. So there are implications that we have to be cognizant of. But the idea of me telling people that I like Broadway and I'm gay, like, if someone doesn't want to work with me because of it, I wasn't fooling anyone anyway, right?
Right.
So that's what that's what I want to stress. But in terms of me being overtly political and specifically try to cause dissent in order to get engagement, also isn't a smart decision.
What do you think's the biggest mistake that agents make in this area?
Truly, I think it really comes down to a lack of delegation. Everyone thinks that they can do everything, and it's just a fact that we can't. And what I remind agents to do, I'm like, okay, take your GCI from last year, divide it by 50 weeks, assuming you take 2 weeks vacation. Humor me, okay? 50 weeks divided by 40 hours a week, and give me like an amalgamated hourly rate. What does that look like, okay? Let's say for the sake of this conversation, let's say that's $200 an hour, maybe, okay? If I am spending 3 hours recording one reel, that's $600 I spent doing that. You could record dozens of reels for $600 with a video producer. Multiply that by 3 times a week times 52 weeks a year, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars of your time doing something you're not good at. That is where I really started to level set in terms of I was recording my content and I was editing it and I was pretty good at it for a novice. However, now I have my team come once every quarter. We film 30 to 35 reels. I pay $2,000 and I literally never have to think about it. I have 40 reels on my phone right now that I post 2 to 3 times a week and I never have to deal with it. Right. And so I think delegation and understanding where you are really fantastic and where you're mediocre is something to be cognizant of. And then the final thing that I'll say is the fact that I think people don't care for and take care of their digital ecosystem. Keep in mind, when a consumer Googles you, they're going to make an assumption about you based on their perception. If your Instagram is outdated and looks like a kindergartner put it together, if your LinkedIn has really old job history and says you're a grocery store manager, if your Zillow profile is outdated and doesn't have a profile photo, if your KW profile is your only website, whether or not it's true, consumers think you don't know what you're doing. And that's really good news. It's good news because we can affect change in the ecosystem overnight. We just have to do the work. So that's something to be cognizant of.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to let our listeners and viewers know how they can either connect with you or learn more about potentially working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a fantastic private roster, like I said, of some of the leading minds of our industry who I'm so honored to work with. And I have built my business through a philosophy of lighting someone else's candle doesn't extinguish your own. So I offer to anyone I meet, anyone listening, I'd love for you to go online to tylergmount.com, tylergmount.com, and sign up for a completely free digital audit. There is no trick. This is not a timeshare offer. We do not push a sale on you. You will sit down with someone from my strategy team, and they will go through your entire ecosystem, that very thing I was just talking about, being the biggest catalyst to close business. And they will go through it with you, and they'll tell you what needs to be improved. From there, if you want to work with my team, fantastic. We have resources on the agency side, from website to graphic design to logo to social content to video content, right? All the way to having someone like me hold your hand every week, every other week, to really ensure that you know where to take your business to the next level and how to do it. So I encourage everyone to do that. You can connect with me at tylergmount.com or on social at tylergmount.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. To all of our listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in. Please share this episode with other agents that you think would benefit from these amazing lessons as well. And we will see you next time.